So welcome to this module. I hope you've been working with your exercises from the last module where we explored the ego as an operating system, how without awareness it can take charge of our happiness for us. And what it does is it wants instant gratification, it wants it now, and we can end up on this hedonic treadmill, where we're chasing after this happiness and we just don't feel like we're getting anywhere. And this is because of immune neglect and the hedonic adaptation that we explored. And it's important for us to step in and, with our awareness, start to take charge of our own well-being. Now, I don't want to say we are not allowed to have the short-term pleasures. I've said this many times before. It is okay, and we'll explore that more under conscious living practices. But it is about becoming more aware of the short-term flavor of these excesses that we might go towards, and they might not necessarily be healthy for our long-term state of well-being. Now, over the next two modules, we are going to be exploring conscious living practices. This is where we step in and take charge of our well-being, where we start consciously working with areas of our behavior that are not necessarily habits. And you will see, we'll look at how we can change habits towards the end of the next module. And that will give you a lot more information in terms of how you can make the changes where you would like to. But yes, I look forward to sharing many ideas in terms of how we can consciously step in and be accountable for our own well-being. Now, in the previous topic, we explored how our comparisons to these external reference points create that gap between what we think we are to what we think we should be. This gap affects our self-esteem, that I am not good enough feeling, which the ego will then attempt to mask or eliminate through our behaviors. For example, it will convince us that we will be happier if we buy the awesome stuff that we use as external reference points, so as to eliminate this gap, boosting our self-esteem in the short term. Now, in this topic, I would like to provide you with some conscious strategies to help you reduce or eliminate the gap created by these external reference points, which negatively impact on how we feel about ourselves. The first method is to whoop yourself out of making comparisons, using the same methodology you use to whoop yourself out of the drama game. So let's look at an example around social media, although this can be applied to any external reference points. Remember, there's no right way or wrong way to write your own whoop. The most important thing is to keep it simple. The wish or goal that I would like to achieve is to use social media less often, and when I do, to use it more consciously. The outcome I see myself achieving is limited and conscious use of social media, with more use of my time on more productive tasks. I feel good about myself because I'm not comparing myself to anyone on social media through mindless scrolling and using my time more effectively elsewhere. Now, the obstacle I can see getting in my way of my wish is when I start looking at what other people are doing and I begin comparing myself to them. I start to get lost in mindless scrolling, feeling low self-esteem because others seem to have a better life than I do. Now, the if-then plan I put into place will be as follows. If I notice that I'm mindlessly scrolling on social media and comparing myself to others, then I will remind myself that these external reference points are not relevant or real. I will stop it and close the application. By the way, the stop it technique is actually a technique to use. Simply notice you're comparing and stop it. But what I do like about the Whoop methodology is that it reminds me why I must stop it. A second strategy is to reset our reference points by concretely re-experiencing or reframing our current situation. Since we externalize our reference points and create this gap, the resetting of reference points is to internalize these, limiting this gap and the resultant low self-esteem. When we concretely re-experience our current situation, we remind ourselves of what we are taking for granted and how we felt when we did not have what we have right now. For example, Jane is not as excited about her dream job as she initially was. She finds herself comparing her work to her friends who seem to have more exciting careers, and this is making her feel very despondent. What Jane can do is to reset her reference points by re-experiencing her current situation. She can remind herself why she started this job and what her previous job was like that prompted her to move. Jane might even go and visit her old place of employment to energize what she currently is taking for granted. Now, Mike, in the previous example from the previous module, could have re-experienced the car he was driving after he got used to it and adapted to it. He could have reminded himself of what it was like to drive his old car previously, maybe even find an old model to drive so he could re-energize his gratitude for what he has now. When we concretely re-experience, we are no longer focusing on what others have and what we do not have, but fully appreciate what is good in our lives in this moment and why it is good in relation to our own journey in life. Finally, a third strategy is to concretely observe the situation as it is. This is where you step into the observer role and you observe your current state of mind around your comparisons in relation to those external reference points. You then ask yourself how another experience could be worse off and find gratitude in what you have been spared. For example, when Mike was comparing himself to his friends and feeling low self-esteem as a result, he could concretely observe his current situation by observing his external reference points and then consider other situations that would leave him worse off than where he is now. He could have no car, or he could have no home, as some people do not have these luxuries. He could remind himself that other people probably look to him and wish they had what he had, as they had far less. Anthony Hicks said, "The reality of life is that we are living someone else's dream." And this could have been a good reminder for Mike to help him stop counting what he does not have and to start counting what he does have. So you can perceive the importance of gratitude when it comes to resetting our reference points as we reduce the gap of who we think we are versus who we think we should be. This gap that creates that I'm not good enough feeling. So we will explore gratitude in a lot more detail later on because there's a lot of science behind it and it has a significant impact in terms of our long-term well-being. Now, you have been provided with an exercise in Workbook 6 to work with resetting your reference points, so please work with that. You're going to be required to whoop your way out of those gaps that you create through the external reference points. And yes, in the next topic, we're going to look at why investing in experiences is more important than investing in stuff when it comes to our long-term well-being. So I look forward to seeing you there. Now, as we finish off this topic, I leave you with a wonderful quote by Eckhart Tolle. "Acknowledging the good that you already have in your life is the foundation for all abundance." So I will see you in the next topic, and until then, take care and stay aware.